Now Happy Jack is going to go to his on-site job and carve a little bit. But I forgot. So I got a couple of big ones. Now, I could do that all day. Any other carving bar would be destroyed.
No.
I mean, there's no spur, no nothing. Well, I'm carving away, and dang it, I hit some steel. A duplex nail, not a little brad nail, right? Uh-oh. What can I possibly do? My chain is dull.
I thought he had it.
Now, Dave here is going to show you the best method in the world for sharpening your chain.
This here is a trick I learned at a log show up in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, everybody's seen a dull saw before. This is, he just cut through a nail, and this is a dull one. So I'm going to show you my trick. My trick is, basically, you want the sparks to go down into the tooth. You're basically trying to replicate exactly what a bench grinder does to a tooth. But instead of having to take it off of your saw, you can just take the Dremel tool out and sharpen it up. I'm not exactly sure. Somebody got a watch around here, and we'll see exactly how long this takes. We got 10 till. I'll see how long it takes after I get this baby slicked up. I find it's a bit quicker and a lot sharper than sharpening with a file. Those guys at the log show really knew what they were doing, and there's a lot of you that know how to sharpen a saw and aren't going to bring away a lot from this, but if you haven't tried one of these, bring a dull saw to me and I will sharpen it up for you and show you what we call happy saw. The sparks going down into the tooth. What it does is it drags the heat of the sparks away from the cutting edge of the tooth instead of towards it.
But when you get a sharper edge on the outside comb of the tooth, if you're going out?
Well, I just, this is a straight up copycat of how those guys did it.
I'm not exactly sure the logic why. I've tried it both ways, and this seems to work the best. There, that's that side. Now we'll flip around and go this way to the other side, just so the sparks go down into the tube. This is a standard issue 420 Dremel bit. Really hard for us carvers to remember that number. I'm trying to, yeah, it's about like the same angle as a block plane. And the guys were talking about the ribbon effect. I mean, if you can look at your teeth or your saw chips and they look like a long piece of ribbon like that, well, you've nailed it. If it's dust, your saw is working harder than it has to. And so are you.
As far as that goes, the same length, keeping your tooth the same length.
It's pretty much eyeball. You're not removing near as much material as you would think. A lot of people think, oh wow, I don't want to, you know, grind the heck out of my tooth with that Dremel tool because a file takes off so little or whatever. I don't find that I'm wasting a whole lot of it. And to me, the proof is in the pudding at the end.
You're cutting better, just like the guy says, change your teeth,
Have you tried a big 4-inch wheel on a big saw yet?
I have used the larger wheels on larger saws. It does. Yeah, let's take a look at the total time, 2 minutes.
And you were talking half of it. Now,
your gullet. How about keeping your gullet clean? You just come back through the round file.
Basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get that baby just as sharp down here at the bottom as I am at the top, because we do a lot of bar drags where you're dragging your bar this way or that. You're making feathers. You're making fur.
Okay, now, another question here. How about your rakers? Are you still use standard flat file for that? Or?
No. I use this thing for everything. Here's another trick that I do on most all the saws. I see that this hasn't been done on this saw. What I'll wind up doing is I'll cut the sides of these rakers down a tiny bit. I'm not gonna raise the level down this far or down this way. You'd probably want to use your gauge. I'm sure you got a raker gauge or whatever for making the riders or rakers, whichever you want to call them, the right height this way. What I'm doing when I knock the edge of this off is I'm exposing more of the side of that tooth to the wood. Oh. The wood is now, instead of this thing rubbing the wood and causing friction, the friction, all it does is it robs you of power and it does nothing. It's nothing done at the end of the day. When you expose more of the side of that tooth to the kerf, your saw will immediately want to cut corners tighter and less friction. I mean, the friction is the enemy, you know. It causes heat and it just messes up your saw. It doesn't get anything done. So when I go through the saw, I'll go this way and that on both sides of that rider. Not getting carried away, just a little bit exposes more of the side of that tooth to the saw kerf, and it'll make it cut. It'll make it turn corners way better.
You can also look him up on YouTube. The camera's right on everything he's doing.
SeeTheWolfpack.com.
SeeTheWolfpack.com.
Yeah, we've got it written on our shirts. The entire video is up on there, and basically, now that this saw will cut again here, I'll do a quick demo on this log that Jack has so graciously prepared for me, and a lot of you guys have seen it before. A lot of you guys are fast at carving. We do some performance art over in our cage each day. If you'd like to come over and jump into the cage and play in front of the crowd of people, more than any of you, more than welcome to come over and do it.
We won't take up much of your time.
5 or 10 minutes, whatever you want to work. You know, it's totally your show once you go over there and get in front of the people and the cameras and stuff.
And we will go back inside. Dave's going to draw the tooth out for you very large and describe the angles. And because it's hard to see everything. You really need to be right up close. But.
So, you want to go ahead and do the quick carve demonstration here? I'll buzz for 5 minutes, and there'll be a bear head right there. If you like, you can definitely try it yourself. I'm going to flip this block over because there's like a bunch of holes in it.
How'd that happen?
Scoops up a little bit so I can get by the man. Well, I'm gonna grab you and go ahead.
It's on camera too.
You know, I didn't do all the rakers, and it really does help, but it's not going to stop me from doing it. I just whatever you'll see. Remind yourself that there's a nail that he just cut off. You can see that the darn saw does want to cut again. Happy saw. And you know, after you practice this method of sharpening your saw, you'll find that this works better than that. I mean, I'm constantly changing the angles, trying to, you know, experiment my way to the perfect saw, you know.
Yeah.
And everybody's got an old pile of old worn-out chains that you're about going to throw them away anyways, and those are the best ones to practice on because, well, they're already in the garbage can. And if you can resurrect one of them and get one more bear out of it, well, then why not, you know? So
that angle you take, cutting underneath the top flat, that means a lot.
I try to keep it at 45 degrees the whole way. If you get a sharper tooth, well, it'll cut like crazy for 5 minutes. But then the first little piece of sand you hit or a really hard knot, it'll get the edge of that tooth folded over and then you're dull. The 45 degree angle helps in the making of the chip. That curve, I mean, you know,
that's the way there's planers.
Like a block plane, when you use that block plane, you'll see that chip comes out, it turns into a piece of ribbon, right? That's key in getting the effect that those hot sawyer guys are after, is making a curled chip. And well, there it is. There's the here's the nail we got through. And I bet if we look at the clock, we're probably only about 8 minutes ago was when we cut through that nail. So there it is.
Okay, and we're going to go inside. Dave will draw on the blackboard a nice big tooth for you.
Yeah, I'll go in and try and explain what I've just done in a little more detail. They actually listened to something I said. Wow, holy, that rarely happens. Well, I am about to the end of my list here. I thank you guys for your attention and see my buddy Jack here. Any questions you got? Yeah.
Difference in the Dremel.
All right.
I have to get it right now.
Dremels come with different. You can get different steel cutting wheels for the Dremel. This is the black ones with the little reinforcement things in there. I don't find that they work as well. They leave a more ragged edge. They're designed to last longer than the non-reinforced ones. But the non-reinforced ones leave a smoother cut, and that's what we're after when we're sharpening our saws. So I use Dremel 420 wheels for carving saws. For the bigger saws, they make a bigger disc. I'm not sure the exact number, but it's the same non-reinforced type wheel. And those work great for your larger saws. I've actually done the larger saws even with the smaller 420 Dremel wheel.
How many different Dremel wheels do they make? Just the two?
I believe. I have not seen a whole lot of extra. I do know that there's off brands. There's a different brand or two of that make these, and I prefer the standard Dremel product. Yeah, they definitely work better. Each wheel, you know, it depends. If you got a big old milling saw or whatever, you'll wind up using maybe one or two of these wheels in order to sharpen a huge saw. For sharpening a carving saw, I wind up sharpening the saw at least a dozen times before you're not removing as much steel, you know. With a large saw, you've got to grind away quite a bit more, and you'll use a couple extra wheels on a bigger saw.
That's cheaper than a file anyway.
I think so. And to me, I can't get the saw as sharp with a file as I can with this method, and so I'm just threw the files away. And I keep one on the dashboard of the truck in case you're way up on the mountain and there's no electricity or whatever. But yeah, they definitely work for me. Any other questions?
By taking off or exposing the corner of that cutting tooth, does it affect the way it mills, like cuts?
When you're milling?
Yeah.
Well, I don't really do it on my milling saw, but I do it on all the larger saws because when you're changing angles, say you want your cuts to meet, knocking the side of that rider off and exposing more of the side of the tube will help you change the angles. You can definitely cut corners, and that's what most of us are after, just cutting corners. So.
What percentage of that upright drag do you take off? Like half of it?
I knock off just enough of it that expose more of the side of the tooth, but yet leave enough of it that you don't get your rider too short because it gets jumpy and nobody wants an unsafe saw, you know.
Okay, just a question. I noticed there when you're doing the demonstration, your chain is like it's awfully loose hanging down. Normally, you have it tighter than that.
I always run them a little bit looser because that chain actually does a little bit of this and that inside of the saw curve as you're going through. Centrifugal force takes over. It looks really loose sitting here right now. Under revs, it doesn't appear to be as loose. The thing about it is that when you're going through a corner and the chain is too tight, it just creates too much heat and winds up messing up my teeth or the chain. I find the chains last longer when I run them a little bit loose.
Okay.
So you'll see me running them a little bit looser than, like, say, Jerry's saw here. That's about the average tension that Jerry runs. It's not going to hurt the bar. Jack runs them a little bit tighter. It's just all in your own personal preference.
Yeah, and you don't have any trouble the chain jumping off on you?
Yeah, the chain is, there's just not, it looks loose, but there's really not enough slack in that thing for it to jump. I rarely ever lose a chain off the carving bar.
I've thrown the chain twice, showing off.
Yeah, it's usually showing off.
Doing it the leverage thing. That bar is a tool. It's like having a crowbar right next to you, so you don't make that older cut and bop that wood out of there. That bar, you can almost do that with the bar. It's just a crowbar. It's another tool. Hold up.
Okay.
Again, anybody that wants to come over and play at the Wolfpack site, we're having little daily shows, so come on over and be a superstar for 5 minutes. Jump in the cage with us. Unless you're chicken, you know. With that said, Jack has got a couple of parting announcements, and I think that concludes our presentation this morning. Thanks for listening and watching.
They do.
I have really no doubt that that's the best way to sharpen the chain. It takes a bit of practice. Maybe I'm a slow learner or a fast learner. It took me a while. Well worth it once you get it. I want to touch once again Christine. He was the biggest hearted man I ever knew. Everyone here, he was your friend instantly. I don't want to tear up, but we're going to try to help Christine a little. She needs it. She won't ask for it. She'll feed you right now. And she really can't afford to. I'd like to see her smile. She's smiling even now. The gym's in a good place. And we're going to make this place just a little bit better for Christine, I hope. Thank you guys, and like I said, I really don't make much money selling these spars. I only do it because it helps my brothers and sisters in the saw. So, thank you very much guys, and let's take advantage of this good weather and go make some sawdust.